Hello, good people. Uh, Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a fancy 3D text for whatever you feel like using it for. I'm using the one I made for my channel header here. I think it turned out pretty good. I'm just going to be showing you how to make one so you can use it for your website, your channel header, whatever you feel like. Alright, let's go ahead and open up Blender. First thing you're always going to want to do is delete your default objects. Next thing, we're going to go down to Add, Text. This just makes a 3D text object for us to use. Let's go ahead and rotate it with RX 90 to set the x-axis to 90 degrees so it's facing the up direction. The next thing I guess we should do is change what the text says. You do that by hitting tab and going into edit mode. And once we're in edit mode, we can just backspace and write whatever we want. I'm going to write the last air blender, just like my header. And once you're done typing whatever you want, just hit tab again, go back into object mode. Yes, now we can move this around like any other object. I'm just going to move it to the middle of my scene so it's easier to use later. Next, what we need to do is make this 2D-ish 3D object into a real, 3D beveled object. And we're going to go into this panel here. We're going to find the text tab, hit that, and find where it says bevel. And now we can change these settings around to create a little bevel on the edges. And if we want our text to be even more 3D, we can go to the extrude area, make that a higher value. So now it's beveled and extruded. Now what we can do to make it look a little nicer, and I covered this in one of my other videos, is go to the Modifier tab. We can select our object, our text, add a modifier to it, go to Edge Split, and that just makes it feel a little more solid. Okay, and once we're happy with what we have with our object here, and it's in the middle of our scene, what we can do is we can start creating our scene to render it out and make it a real 3D text that you can use in your whatever you want, your endeavors. I'm going to go add plane, create a plane below this so that it has something to cast a shadow on later. Now I guess we're going to set up our camera, and how we're going to do that, we're going to go to Add, Camera. It's going to create the default location of the camera. For some reason, it's like 45 degrees off. I don't know why it does that, but we can just hit RZ to move it on the Z axis and center it, move it where we want until we're happy with where it is. We can always go to the numpad and actually hit 0 to change to a camera view, so we can like edit the camera in the camera's perspective so that we know that it's right. And we'll just scale down our object to fit into the screen. Maybe use the arrows to move it where we want. You can select the camera in the camera view by hitting like the outline of the camera, which is kind of cool. Move the camera. I'm just hitting RX to rotate the camera on the x-axis, and grabbing it, pulling it down on the z-axis, move it up and down. Pretty handy. Until we are happy with where it is. And I think I'm happy with that. And we can just hit 0 again to go back into the normal view. 0 to go into camera mode. It's kind of cool. Anyway, all we're missing in this scene right now is a light. Once we go into cycles render, which is what we're going to be using to render this scene out, we'll notice that when we go into rendered mode, that it's very dark and it's hard to see anything. That's because there's no light in the scene. Let's add a light. Now the way I'm going to add a light to this scene, you can do it in a lot of different ways. One, you can just go to add lamp and just add a point light. But in order to make my header look a little cleaner, I'm going to add a different kind of light. Now in cycles, you can use any object as a lamp or a light by giving it a special material. Now I'm going to go to mesh plane, and I'm going to create this plane that I'm going to be using for my material to create my lamp. I'm just going to scale that until I'm happy with where it is behind it. And now in order to give it the right material, in order to make it a lamp, we're going to go over to this material tab. This only works in cycles render mode, by the way. If it's in Blender render, it won't work right. Hit new, and now I'm giving it a special material. I'm giving it a emission material, and that's going to be able to create the light we need. Once we go back into rendered mode, we'll see that it actually does create an actual light here. Once we go back into camera mode, actually, we can actually reposition our light here to take up as much of the screen as we want to create our scene. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is how to change the material of your object and your ground floor to make it look a little prettier, make the materials look how you want. Now to do that, we'll just do it the same way we changed the plain lamp that we made. Select your text object. You can add a new material. Right now it defaults to a diffuse material. If we want it to be a little shiny, we can change it to glossy. There's more complicated ways to create materials and cycles using nodes, but we're just going to use the basic window setup here. You can change the roughness slider until you're happy with it. But what's really gonna make your 3D text pop is going to be your ground plane. And what we're gonna do is select the ground plane, change the material of it to a glossy material, change the rendering mode of that to a different one, and set the roughness. And that's going to make our ground material a really, really reflective material. And that's going to make it look like it's like on ice or glass or something very reflective. And now when we go back into our camera mode, we can see that we need to fix the rotation of the camera a little bit. Make it look right. There. We can just use the rendered editor setting to sample our image, see if we're happy with it. I'd like to scale mine up a little bit more, move it a little bit. Now I believe I'm happy with it, so now all we have to do is go up to this render tab, hit render image, and it just renders out your image. It might take a while depending on what kind of graphics hardware you have. And mine is finished. Save your image, save as image, and then once you have your image, you can do whatever you want with it. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Catch you later.